Omega now, Omega forever. Let's look at these characters reflect their comic book art.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to another episode of Panels to Plastic, the series where I take a look at comic book-based figures compared to their comic book artwork. I did this before with the Mirage Comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures from NECA and how they related to the original comic art. So let's do it with the Power Rangers Omega Ranger box set from the Lightning Collection. Alright, let's look at the brand spanking new Omega Rangers 4-pack. This was a Hasbro Pulsecon 2023 exclusive. It ran for $100. It is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, so I wish you the best of luck when getting this. I was so excited for this pack. I was so pissed when it showed up as in stock and not a pre-order. I had to do some financial rearranging to make it happen, but I did get my Omega Rangers because I absolutely love the Omega Rangers as a concept, as an idea, and as a storyline in the comics. So of course, as soon as Lightning Collection figures existed, I had to have it. And more specifically too, this box art is beautiful. It looks like it's artwork from Daniele Di Nicuolo. I think it's a mixture of pre-existing art from the books. I don't think it's a new piece here, but it does look really dynamic and really nice. And for being a convention exclusive, that is really great. Unfortunately, due to the plastic-free packaging initiative making cardboard a little thinner, it is kind of a thin box. So I'd be very careful with it if you're trying to preserve the artwork, because while it's there on a nice glossy finish, the box doesn't have much stability. Environmentally sustainable? Maybe. Not as sturdy? Definitely. Am I going to complain about it? Not really. On the side here, we also got the 4 Omega Ranger helmets. This is based on the first iteration of the team, which is Jason, Trini, Zach, and Hia. You know, I would sit here and go, I want another 4-pack of Omega Rangers, but, you know, I'm just going to take what I can get at this point. I do appreciate the Boom Studios logo being prominent, as these are characters from their comics, though I do wish there was some credit given to Daniele Di Nicuolo, and, of course, Ryan Parrott, who also co-created. Credits to artists, always a thing I'll ask for on toy packaging, because it doesn't happen enough. But let's take a look at the figures one by one before comparing them to their comic art. So let's start with the red Omega Ranger, Jason. Now, we're going to see sort of a thing with this set is it's essentially 2 molds. There's not too much mold variation between them. It's 2 brand new body molds for these Rangers, because it kind of had to be. What I love about the Omega Ranger designs is that they are very Power Rangers inspired. They very much have kind of like, you know, the primary color, but then like a larger secondary color, kind of like where the gray bodysuit is more prominent than the actual individual color. But what's really cool about them is because they aren't physical costumes, they don't have to have the limitations of that. So you get some more intricate detailing, some more intricate, you know, paint work. The, you know, like the armbands here, those would probably have to be wrapped onto the costume. Same thing with the morphers. The morphers are prominent in the comics. Now, what's interesting about the morphers for the Omega Rangers is they aren't kind of like a simple slide on the wrist thing or appear with a teleportation. They're wearing them all the time, and it's essentially, it's a hand brace here and then a ring around each finger, which I think is so cool. But again, if you're doing a TV production, that's not so practical. So it definitely works into these are comic book designs. And that's what I like about them, is because they can look really cool in the comics without having to worry about the practicality of physical production. And I think that is such a huge benefit. Now, you may notice his neck is a little lopsided here. We're going to look at that in a moment. Ignore that, because it's not like a universal problem. It's kind of just a me problem. But in general, you can see that they did a good job replicating the look. Again, we will compare to the comic art in a bit, but I did want to talk about sort of the new body molds. I do appreciate the paint all the way down the back as well, and it just looks really, really nice. These are great designs. Now, articulation-wise, that's where things are a little crazy. So first of all, I'm going to pop the head. There aren't alternate heads included, but these are on standard ball joints. This is the new neck system introduced with Wave 15, I think, or Wave 14 maybe, of the line, that you have kind of, instead of a hinge and swivel, all the Lightning Collection for a while was just a standard hinge and swivel thing going on, and so sometimes the necks looked really short on characters. They kind of fixed that here, because now there's a separate neck piece from the top. You do lose the up and down, like, hinge and swivel, but I don't really use those anyways. But this kind of rotates around. Now, something you may have noticed is that, you know, when I popped the head on earlier, it was slightly, you know, askew, but I've got it straightened out there. So a couple more joints to worry about, but in general, you do get a nice side to side, a little tilt, a little up and down. You're not gonna look straight up, but I don't know how often you would anyways. Let me know in the comments. Shoulders move out. Shoulders do move 360. These actual shoulder pads are cut to be separate pieces, which means while the actual butterfly hinge here is a little bit more restrictive, it's not going to restrict your arm movement as much. You don't have to cave into it because it is just kind of floating there, which is nice, but it's also not floating in a way where it's just going to rotate itself around. You get a bicep swivel, a double joint elbow. These are inset pin figures. The wrists are interesting because on the guys, both Jason and Zach, they hold in, but they're really easy to get out. They don't require force, which is good because some people have stripped, including myself, have stripped the joint out of the hand because of how tight the wrist peg is. But I do notice sometimes I'll find it just kind of slips out if I'm posing it. But it does have an in and out pivot. You get an upper ball joint to the torso, which allows it to kind of rotate, left and right. And then the up and down, the forward and back is assisted by the waist joint, which works pretty good. I think that keeps the look pretty clean. The hips move out. They also drop down to kick forward and to go back. That gives them a little bit of extra range. If they're just here, they'd still work fine, but it kind of gives them additional kicking. And then you also notice this piece here, softer material, so it gets out of the way. Thigh swivel, double joint knee, like this. Let's see if we can get all the joints engaged. There you go. So pretty good range there. And then you got boot swivel, and then anklet pivots forward, back, left, and right. So, forward and back, left, and right. And that is pretty good. I think he's got all the articulation you expect, but nothing restricted, especially when we get into his weapon, the Omega Katana. So here is the Omega Katana. He does come with 2 holding hands to hold this. What's nice is that with the fists, they have the articulation point of moving in and out on that middle axis, whereas for the sword hands, you do get kind of an up and down pivot, which is much better for him holding the sword with 2 hands. The other good part is I feel like they finally learned their lesson with the weapon handles. We've been having this since the beginning of the line, where they paint the handles opposed to painting the rest of the weapon. This is molded in red plastic. The blade is painted silver. The black and gold is added there. So that means the hands aren't going to rub off the handle color, which is fantastic. You see here, he's got the articulation range. Let's get the blade turned the correct direction here. The articulation range to hold it with 2 hands, which is fantastic. Now, the other thing too, you do get a lightning effect to go over. I'm going to carefully put this over. I do not like these lightning effects because they're too tight and you leave them on too long. They'll rub the paint into the effect part, and then the paint on the blade is all gone and torn off. See my Mighty Morphin Red from Wave 3. I left the effect on too long, and now if I don't have the effect on, it just looks splotchy and bad. So yeah, I still don't like most of these lightning effects, but this is a reused one from the past. Overall though, Omega Red, great figure. All right, so here is the yellow Omega Ranger trainee. What's really cool is that you got the similar design elements from Red, but it's put onto the female mold, but it doesn't look like it's lost anything. Sometimes happens with Power Rangers figures, or the action figures in general, where the ladies don't get as much attention as the guys in terms of the sculpting, but they actually did a really good job here. It is interesting that yet again, we have kind of these large size boots going on. For some reason, on like almost all the female Lightning Collection figures, they have these boots that aren't like even to the legs the way that the guys are. It's a weird thing. I think it comes from the Mighty Morphin suits. Minor quip, but that's about it. So what's really cool, again, we have a brand new mold, just like with Jason, so I kind of did these in the order I did. You can see the helmet design is just really good, but it has a lot of the same elements that Jason did with the sash, the armbands, the morpher on the hand. What's cool too is that they actually went in and painted all these details. I didn't highlight it on the opposite hands for Jason, but both the regular and the alternate gripping hands all have the painted rings, which is really, really cool to see because that's extra paint budget. And in fact, if you're wondering, these don't come on mastheads, why do you still sell that pack for $100 at $25 a figure? It's because they're, new molds, new sculpting, and then also the extra paint job that's going on here. Prefer this to, having to pay less or getting to pay less, but having less details correct. So there's that. Now with the head joint, you've got, same kind of system with that double ball and socket thing. So articulation-wise, she can look left, right, up, down. She's got a good range of movement, so you can get some good adjustment. Shoulders move out. They don't butterfly, even though the joint is in there. They do 360, with again that being a separate piece. Double jointed elbow, really nice to see because we had single joints on the ladies for the longest time. Rotation, in and out. With the alternate gripping hands, it is an up and down pivot. Then in the torso, you got the upper ball joint. It's not got as much side to side as like Jason does, but it does move. And then you got the ab crunch there at the waist. Hips move out, hips move forward, hips drop down to move forward even better, which is great. thigh swivel, double jointed knee, not as much range as Jason does, and it's also because of the giant boot. Boot swivel, forward and back pivot, left and right. So you got all the good range of movement there. But of course, she needs her weapon, the Omega Hammer. So the coolest thing about Trini having a hammer is that typically we have seen Yellow Rangers with hammers. Two examples would be Dustin from Ninja Storm and Jack from Hyperforce, but they're both male Yellow Rangers. And typically with the way that Power Rangers and Sentai have done things, the female Rangers get kind of, how do I say, daintier weapons. They get the blaster, the bow, the little daggers, that kind of thing. Not so much a powerhouse of a weapon. So I love breaking the trend and giving Trini the powerful hammer, because I think it really fits her personality in the comics especially. And I think it's just really cool. I love the design of it. I love that it's got kind of like, it's sort of an alien design. Since the Omega Rangers do have powers sourced from alien planets, it does have more of an alien design to it. I like the way that the lines are in, and I like how it's painted yellow all the way across. I have one minor quibble with the handle color, but the handle color does seem to be the plastic color with the handle attaching to this. So this is plastic silver, this is plastic bronze, and then painted yellow and black here and there. Just excellent stuff. What's really awesome is Trini's effect part is brand new with a hammer impact. So I don't think we've gotten any hammers in Lightning Collection. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think this is our first. And that actually is a really cool effect. Now the box art does show having it attached to it, like she's swinging it. Haven't figured that out yet. You kind of have to squeeze it. There you go, you can kind of squeeze it in. It's gonna fall off. It's really thick plastic. Kind of having it as an impact piece. And if you wanted to have it like impacting on like a villain or something, you could probably set that up, maybe put like some sticky tack in there and then have it like set up where she's just like bashing the crap out of like pumpkin wrapper or something. Pretty cool. Love the hammer. Love the figure. All right, the Black Omega Rangers, Zach, looking super sharp. Always love when they can have kind of a color variation with like the Black Ranger. And the main bodysuit is gray, but he's still got the black elements, the black boots, the black torso design in the helmet. It's distinctively two different colors. It's not all the same, which I think is so cool. Something really cool too is that he does have the same head sculpt as Jason's helmet, but they did paint the actual distinctive symbol up here, which I think is really cool. Again, we'll do a comparison. Yeah, overall, I mean, the hands are all painted. It's pretty much the same exact mold as Jason, which is, you know, it's accurate. They don't really change that much. It's the forehead gems are the biggest change, and they figured out how to do it with paint instead of sculpting, so yay, budgets. Same mold as Jason, so same terrific figure, honestly. I don't really have anything else to say uniquely to Zach figure-wise, and I don't need to do articulation. He just looks really, really nice. All right, Zach's weapons are the Omega Kama. These are bladed weapons with a chain connecting them between. Now, the chain was the part I was most curious about how they're actually going to pull it off for the figure, and I'm very, very happy with how they did it. So let's get these out of his hands for a moment, because I do want to talk about this. This is a unique feature after all. So as you can see, they've painted them quite well. They got the little ring part at the bottom. They've got the extra details up top. Really cool. And you can see that the chain is plastic, but it's flexible. I mean, this is very flexible. A lot of times we get plastic chains or whips or something, and they're just like really stiff and really hard to pose with. This is gonna, you know, move and bend as time goes on, but you can actually move it out of the box. And then adding to that, they put the actual connectors as not single-time connections. So if you want to remove the chain, just have them with these, you totally could. But more specifically, it gives an articulation point. So if the chain isn't exactly where you want it, you can move it around. Awesome, love that. I have a minor quibble about the color. We'll talk about that when we do the comparison, but it's very possible this is just the color it had to be to make this feature work with it being so movable, but I love it. The main reason I love it is because it gives you posing options. You're not stuck in one pose with this dude. You actually have many, many options at your disposal. So if you want them like this, you got that. If you want them kind of like swooping the chain around the back like this, you've got that option too. I've twisted his arm in an unnatural position. I apologize. Around the back if you want, which works pretty good. And his hands grip these pretty well. You can do all kinds of kind of cool poses with them because the chain is so malleable, and I like that a lot. He also does come with two effect parts. I don't remember if these are reused from the Ninja Turtles. They just look like they are. They look very similar to the Ninja Turtle effects. They go on like this. They may be new. Someone that's tracking the effects and what molds they are, let me know. They seem very similar to the Ninja Turtles effects, but they do fit on the end of his blade, so it's got kind of a swoosh to it, which is cool. But yeah, I'm really happy with how they did the chain on his weapons. It just makes the whole thing a much better experience. So our last Omega Ranger in the set is the Blue Omega Ranger. This is Kia. I would have preferred Yale. Comic readers, you know what I'm talking about. Of course, Kia here can be the same exact mold as Trini with just some paint differences. So you can see, yeah, it's the same figure. That's fine. No problems here. In fact, I do like the blue color. It's a light blue. Always appreciate blue mixing of hues and colors for Power Rangers. I don't really have too much else to say about her. She's got the same, you know, body. I think it's actually funny. I think the female body mold QC-wise is a little bit better than the male body mold. But she looks really good. She's got the same, you know, neck articulation and everything. The forehead gem, just like with Zach and Jason, it's the same mold as Trini's, but it's painted accordingly. And no other details are missing. Got no complaints here. So here is the Omega Trident. It's mostly blue. You got some white on the end here, which is really, really cool. I like that this was kind of a unique weapon for her as her time as the Blue Omega Ranger as well. And I think it looks really cool, and it's really well rendered here. She also comes with the same lightning effect that came with like Astronema and Scorpina. It's just really big and unwieldy. I'm not a fan of that one. So overall, the Omega... Wait, you're an SPD Omega Ranger. Anyways, the Omega Rangers look great together, but how is their comic accuracy? Because that's ultimately what we're deciding here. The art reference I'm using in this segment was written by Ryan Parrott, illustrated by Danielle Diniculo, and then colored by Walter Bramanti with Katina Raulani and Danielle Anuso. The Omega Rangers debuted in a teaser page at the end of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 41, where Jason, Zach, and Trini had told their friends they were going to a peace conference, and they actually went to space and became brand new Rangers. A great way to keep these characters in rotation without having to lose Rocky, Adam, and Aisha from the main story. And it kind of provided why I love the Omega Rangers, a way to expand the story. Now the three of them are joined by Kia, who is from another planet, and from the guidance of the Blue Morphin Master Emissary, become the Omega Rangers. And here's what I was talking about with the Morphers, where they're on the hands in these rings. It looks really cool. Plus, they're not trying to hide it. They're in space. Who needs a civilian identities when they're not on Earth? Omega Earth Power, Omega Air Power, Omega Fire Power, Omega Water Power, Omega Now, Omega Forever. This is the page that sold me that I needed figures of these guys, and I've waited years for it, and I'm so happy I finally have them. Now, let's take a look at these, especially because these are good, clean shots, compared to each figure. Okay, so first things first, we're looking at Omega Red. Now, you may notice this one thing. It's a minor thing in the long run, and I don't really mind it. There is more of a gold hint to the coloring in these issues compared to the more bronze here. The coloring does vary depending on who is the color artist throughout the comics that the Omegas have appeared in. So sometimes it's a very distinctive gold, sometimes it is more bronze. I do think that in general, to get this sash piece in bronze, so it matches color-wise to the rest of it, means that's how we got everything else in bronze. But it doesn't look wrong to me, it just looks like different highlights of different versions of gold, so I don't have a real problem with that. Other than that, the details like the shoulder pads and everything has been adapted to the Lightning Collection art style, and I do think that worked pretty well. In addition to that, the head gem being the actual triangle shape, it's just red in the middle, perfectly accurate here. And as you can see here, same thing with Kia, where she has the black part above the gem, and then the gem is facing that direction. Totally matches up here as well, the blue in the center and all that. There's going to be that difference between the gold and the bronzish gold, but again, I'm not really complaining about that. I'm totally fine with it. So same thing for Zach. As you can see, there is that little bit of a line through his head gem, which is replicated here. It is just paint, as far as I can tell. I don't feel any different molding here. But the fact they did provide that detail is excellent. This is the kind of attention to detail I love seeing. And then lastly here with Trini, you can see she also has a line through her forehead gem. And while you can't see it as well all the way over there, I'll get a close-up. You can see it is painted in there. Again, not necessarily molded there, but it is painted there, and I appreciate that detail because it makes each helmet distinctive. I just wanted to highlight this page from Mighty Morphin 42 where Kia just absolutely pelts a guy into the ground with a lot of force. It's really showing the power that you can have presented in the comics as opposed to the live action. While the live action can do, you know, more dynamic wire work and stuff like this, I don't think I've ever seen this kind of power scaling in Power Rangers before. Now, it wasn't until issue 44 where we actually got the debut of the Omega weapons, so let's take some comparison shots. So with the Omega Katana, you can see that the blade color is correct. It's got the same shape. The handle is mostly painted as it is in the comics. There's no gold tip on the end of the handle, but that's totally fine because if you're having him hold it in two hands like he does a lot in a lot of shots, you're going to rub that off. So I think that was fine leaving that blank, but overall it's a well-replicated version of the weapon. Same goes for Kia's Trident. The end design matches up to the comic, and the fact it is all blue except for that little gold tip at the end. Totally matches up perfectly good. They did a really good job with these figures. Now, the art style does shift with different artists and even within the same artist, so I'm not going to complain about the design of the hammer being a little bit more square than it is rectangular, because that changes throughout time. One thing, however, that stays usually consistent is the fact the handle is yellow. It is that bronze color, that bronze gold color, which is fine. It's not like a super huge deal. As you can see, it's all yellow here, and that may have had to have been a plastic color thing as opposed to just being able to be the color of the plastic here, so that way you don't rub it off. So if it had to be painted to be yellow, I'd prefer not to be yellow and just have a good solid handle. Now, you may notice with the Kama, you have the chain is actually gold, and it's not that bronze color here, it's silver. In fact, even the box art has it in the gold color as opposed to the silver. And you can see here in a later issue where Igor Monti was the colorist, it's still gold, so this isn't something that changed over time. Now let's back up to an earlier comment where I said I really liked how flexible this plastic is. Likely, you couldn't do that in gold or the bronze color. We saw the bronze be softer plastic on the skirt pieces, but those are a lot thicker than this. To make this malleable enough to really work, it probably had to be in silver. And I'm totally cool if that's the case, and honestly, it's not something I'm going to lose sleep over, but if we're comparing comic shots to figures, I do have to bring it up, even though I don't think it's that big of a deal, and it totally looks fine in silver. Color scheme-wise, it actually kind of makes more sense. Minor side note, I would have liked to have seen Kia's cape included, but I understand budgets and stuff. I'm happy to have the figures, though the cape thing would have been kind of a neat addition, since it would have just probably clipped over the shoulders like Ranger Slayer's cape. But minor squabbles aside, still a good figure. I just, cape looks cool. And I do want to reiterate, the Omega Ranger figures are fantastic. I absolutely love these. It's probably my single favorite release of the entire Lightning collection, if I'm being honest. And here's the thing, too. While we have minor color squabbles like the handles or the chains, I can let those go. And the actual bronze color, the more bronzish gold as opposed to the gold that was in some of the comic panels, here's the thing, it's a consistent color. They decided that is the accent color and used it on all 4 of these. If these had come out in single packs, who knows how many different versions of that color we would have gotten. So they just look terrific together. They look fantastic. I do wish we could get a second set with the female red, the male yellow, the giant cat alien blue, and then maybe the Death Ranger. But it doesn't seem to be happening, and I'm totally happy with these, though, because having the initial Omega Rangers, at the very least, before the line kind of goes on a bit of a hiatus, totally cool with that. I love these figures, absolutely, and I'm so glad I got them. And I highly recommend them if you love these characters and these designs. They're just terrific. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with these, and if you've never checked out the Power Rangers comics, what better time than while the show's on a bit of a break? Check out the Discord server in the link below, because if you join that, you get access to my reading guide, in addition to the video I've already done, which was a reading order for the comics. I highly recommend checking it out if you're a Rangers fan. There's a lot of great ideas and a lot of cool new storytelling things that we never really get in the shows, and I've really enjoyed them over the last several years. But that does it for this video. If you want to see one talking about more of the Boom comics, be sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell and hit the like button to let me know you enjoyed this video. Also leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. I definitely have other things I could do in this space, so let me know of any ideas you want for panels to plastic. In addition to that, you can check out my Monday live streams where we talk about Power Rangers news and more, and sometimes even rank and discuss the shows. Plus, you can check out my social media at Soundout12. You can find my awesome graphic designer on social media and in the Discord at DarkClaw643, and of course you can check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for Power Rangers comic news, reviews, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.